Have you ever watched someone who seems to effortlessly attract everything they want? They get the perfect parking spot, meet their soulmate at a coffee shop, land their dream opportunity through a chance encounter. Meanwhile, you work twice as hard and struggle for scraps. You've probably told yourself it's luck, or connections, or timing. But what if I told you there's something else at play? Something that has nothing to do with your background, your education, or your bank account. What if life isn't the struggle you've been told it is? What if it's actually a game with rules that no one ever taught you? In 1925, a woman named Florence Scovel Shinn published a small book that would change everything for those who discovered it. She wasn't a scholar or a philosopher. She was an artist who stumbled upon principles that seemed almost too simple to be true. Yet these principles have quietly influenced some of the most successful people of the past century. Shinn discovered that life operates like a game. And like any game, there are rules. Miss the rules, and you'll struggle forever. Learn them, and everything changes. Tonight, we're going to explore these rules together. You're going to discover why some people seem blessed while others feel cursed. Why some relationships flourish while others wither. Why some people live in abundance while others barely survive. More importantly, you're going to learn how to change your position in this game, how to stop being a victim of circumstances and become the player who always wins. This isn't about positive thinking or wishful hoping. This is about understanding the spiritual laws that govern your reality. Laws as predictable as gravity, as reliable as mathematics. So settle in. Turn off your notifications, because for the next hour and a half, we're going to transform how you see your life, your challenges, and your unlimited potential. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Game. Most people wake up every morning ready for battle. Battle against their boss, their bills, their loneliness, their fears. They armor themselves with coffee and complaints, then march into a world they believe is working against them. But what if you've been fighting the wrong war? Florence Scovel Shinn made a revolutionary observation. Life isn't a battle at all. It's a game. A game of giving and receiving, of cause and effect, of spiritual laws as precise as physics. Think about the people you know who seem to glide through life. They're not necessarily smarter, prettier, or luckier than you, but they've unconsciously learned to play by different rules. They give love and receive love. They speak abundance and attract abundance. They imagine success and manifest success. Then there are those who seem perpetually stuck. They work hard but stay broke. They search for love but find heartbreak. They chase opportunities that vanish just before their grasp. These people aren't cursed. They've simply learned the wrong rules. The Bible puts it simply, "Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap." This isn't religious doctrine. It's a description of how reality works. Every thought you think, every word you speak, every emotion you feel is a seed planted in the invisible field of consciousness. And like seeds, they grow into experiences that match their nature. Plant seeds of fear, and you'll harvest situations that terrify you. Plant seeds of criticism, and you'll find yourself surrounded by critics. Plant seeds of lack, and poverty will be your crop. But plant seeds of faith, and miracles become commonplace. Plant seeds of gratitude, and abundance flows toward you. Plant seeds of love, and you become magnetic to everything beautiful. Your imagination is the most powerful tool you possess. Shinn called it the scissors of the mind, because it's constantly cutting out pictures from your thoughts and displaying them in your life. Every day, you're unconsciously designing your future through the images you hold in your mind. Consider the woman who spent her childhood playing widow, dressing in black, wearing veils. Everyone thought it was amusing. Years later, she married the love of her life, only to lose him shortly after. The image of widowhood, impressed upon her subconscious mind as a child, eventually manifested as her reality. Or think about your own life. What pictures have you been unconsciously creating? Do you see yourself always running late, always struggling financially, always getting hurt in relationships? These aren't predictions. They're instructions you've been giving to your subconscious mind. The subconscious doesn't think. It doesn't judge. It simply obeys. It's like a faithful servant that takes every thought, every word, every imagined scenario as a command and works tirelessly to make it real. This is why some people attract drama wherever they go. They've trained their imagination to expect conflict, so conflict becomes their constant companion. Others seem surrounded by helpful people and fortunate circumstances because they've learned to expect goodness. Your conscious mind sees the world as it appears, full of problems, limitations, and obstacles. But your superconscious mind, that divine intelligence within you, sees the world as it truly is, abundant, loving, and perfectly orchestrated. Every person has a perfect pattern, a divine design for their life. It usually flashes across your awareness as something that seems too good to be true. That's not wishful thinking. That's your soul showing you your true destiny. But here's where most people go wrong. They see this perfect vision and immediately start planning how to force it into reality. They manipulate, scheme, and exhaust themselves trying to make it happen. This is like trying to push a river upstream. Instead, learn to flow with the current of divine order. Speak your vision into existence. See it as already accomplished. Feel grateful for its manifestation before you see any evidence. This isn't delusion. This is how the game is played. Remember, life responds to your dominant thoughts and feelings, not your occasional wishes. If you spend 5 minutes visualizing success but 5 hours worrying about failure, you're placing a massive order for failure. The game of life rewards those who understand that giving precedes receiving, that faith creates facts, and that love conquers everything. When you align with these principles, you stop being a victim of circumstances and become a conscious creator of your experience. Your words are creative forces. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Every casual comment about being unlucky, every joke about being broke, every complaint about being alone is programming your subconscious to create more of what you don't want. From this moment forward, speak only what you wish to experience. Joke only about good things. Complain only to create contrast that helps you clarify what you really want. The game is simple. Give what you want to receive, speak what you want to experience, imagine what you want to manifest. But simple doesn't mean easy. It requires constant vigilance over your thoughts, words, and emotions. Are you ready to stop battling life and start playing the game? The rules are about to become crystal clear. Chapter 2: The Law of Prosperity. Right now, someone is lying in bed worried about money. They're calculating bills, imagining worst-case scenarios, feeling the familiar knot of anxiety in their stomach. They believe that somewhere out there, resources are limited and they're not getting their fair share. Meanwhile, across town, someone else is falling asleep feeling grateful for abundance. They're not necessarily richer, but they understand something the worried person doesn't. Supply is infinite, and your beliefs determine your portion. The difference between these two people isn't their circumstances, it's their relationship with the source of all prosperity. One believes in scarcity, the other knows abundance is their birthright. Florence Scovel Shinn discovered that God, or universe, or source, whatever you call that infinite intelligence, is not separate from you. It is the very essence of who you are. And since this intelligence is limitless, you have access to limitless supply. But here's the catch. You can only receive what you believe you deserve, and you can only experience what you prepare for. A woman once came to Shinn in complete despair. She was about to be sued for $3,000 and had no idea where the money would come from. Most people would have said, "Face reality. You don't have the money." But Shinn understood a different reality. She spoke these words, "Infinite Spirit, open the way for great abundance. She is an irresistible magnet for all that belongs to her by divine right. Then came the crucial instruction: act as if you've already received it. The woman's rational mind rebelled. How could she act rich when she was about to be broke? But faith isn't logical, it's supralogical. It operates on principles that transcend ordinary thinking. So the woman did something that seemed insane. When the money still hadn't appeared by the deadline, instead of panicking, she went to an expensive restaurant and ordered an elaborate meal. She was literally eating as if she were already wealthy. The next day, her cousin appeared unexpectedly at her door. After an hour of casual conversation, he asked about her finances. When she mentioned needing money, he immediately offered to give her $3,000. This wasn't coincidence. This was cosmic law in action. By acting as if she had already received, she aligned her vibration with abundance. The universe had no choice but to match her energy with corresponding circumstances. Most people pray for money while preparing for poverty. They ask for abundance while hoarding every penny out of fear. They want prosperity while talking constantly about lack. This creates vibrational confusion that blocks the very thing they desire. The Bible tells of 3 kings in the desert who needed water for their men and animals. The prophet Elisha gave them an impossible instruction: you won't see wind or rain, but dig ditches anyway. They were told to prepare for the miracle before there was any sign of it coming. Those kings had to choose: trust their eyes or trust the vision. Dig ditches in the scorching desert for water that wasn't visible, or conserve their energy for more practical solutions. They chose faith. They dug ditches all night, and by morning, those ditches overflowed with life-giving water. This is how prosperity works. You must prepare for abundance before you see it. Buy the tools for your dream business before you have the business. Dress for the success you haven't achieved yet. Make space in your life for the relationship you desire. A woman needed an apartment during New York's housing crisis. Her friends pitied her, assuming she'd have to live in a hotel. But she understood the game differently. She spoke the words, "Infinite Spirit, open the way for the right apartment." Then she did something that seemed foolish to her rational mind. She went shopping for blankets for the apartment she didn't yet have. When fear whispered, "Don't buy those, you might not get an apartment," she replied, "I'm digging my ditches." Those blankets were her act of faith. They were her way of telling the universe she expected her prayer to be answered. And it was. Despite over 200 other applicants, the perfect apartment became hers. But what about when dark thoughts arise? What about when your bank account is empty and bills are due and every fiber of your being wants to panic? This is when the game gets interesting. Shinn called these moments the darkest before the dawn. When you make a declaration of spiritual truth, you challenge every limited belief in your subconscious mind. These beliefs fight back like cornered animals. This is not the time to give up. This is the time to affirm even more powerfully. Before I call, Spirit answers. My good is already on its way. Feel gratitude for the solution before you see it. Praise the abundance that exists in the invisible realm, waiting to materialize. Remember, you live in a friendly universe that wants you to prosper. Every desire in your heart was placed there by the same intelligence that has the power to fulfill it. Your job isn't to figure out the how. Your job is to maintain the vision and prepare for its arrival. Start seeing every financial challenge as a spiritual opportunity. Instead of asking, "How will I pay this bill?" ask, "How does infinite abundance want to express through me now?" Instead of fearing lack, become excited about the creative ways prosperity will surprise you. Your supply comes from God, not from jobs or people or investments. These are merely channels through which infinite abundance flows. When you remember this, you stop trying to manipulate specific channels and start trusting the source to use whatever pathway serves your highest good. Right now, Speak these words with complete conviction. Infinite Spirit, open the way for great abundance. I am an irresistible magnet for all that belongs to me by divine right. Feel the truth of these words. See yourself living prosperously. Prepare for abundance as if it's already on its way, because it is. Chapter 3. The Power of the Word. A father was driving with his young son when they approached a red light. "Watch this," the father said with a grin. "I always catch the lights just right." Sure enough, as they neared the intersection, the light turned green. This happened consistently for years. The son grew up expecting green lights and, remarkably, seemed to catch them more often than statistics would suggest. But the father's neighbor had a different experience. He constantly complained about his terrible timing. "I always hit red lights," he'd mutter. "Just my luck." And indeed, he spent most of his driving time waiting at intersections. Same roads, same traffic patterns, completely different experiences. The only difference was the words they spoke about their reality. Your words are not just communication, they are creation. Every statement you make is a law you're creating for your life. Every casual comment is a command to your subconscious mind. Every joke about your limitations becomes a blueprint for your experiences. By your words you shall be justified, and by your words you shall be condemned. This isn't moral judgment. It's a description of how consciousness works. Your words literally shape your world. A woman once told Shinn about her life of poverty and limitation. She used to have a beautiful home and plenty of money, but now she was struggling just to survive. As they talked, Shinn discovered that for years, this woman had complained about managing her household. "I'm sick and tired of things," she had said repeatedly. "I wish I lived in a trunk." And that's exactly what happened. She lost her home and ended up living out of a single trunk. She had literally spoken herself into the experience she now lamented. The subconscious mind has no sense of humor. It doesn't understand sarcasm or exaggeration. When you joke about being broke, it hears a command to create more financial struggle. When you laugh about being unlucky in love, it receives instructions to block romantic opportunities. This is why some people seem cursed by their own mouths. They constantly speak disaster and then wonder why their lives are filled with problems. They describe themselves as victims and then attract victimizing circumstances. But the law works in reverse too. Change your words, and you change your world. A man spent years complaining that he always missed the train. His daughter, hearing this pattern, consciously chose different words. "I always catch the train just in time," she would say. And remarkably, trains seemed to wait for her while her father stood on empty platforms. Same family, same genetics, same train system, but different words created different realities. Think about the conversations you have with yourself throughout the day. Are you constantly predicting problems? Do you joke about your failures? Do you speak about limitations as if they're permanent features of your identity? Every word is a prayer. Every statement is an affirmation. Every casual comment is programming your future experiences. A woman with a disfiguring skin condition had been told by doctors it was incurable. She was a performer, and the condition threatened her career. But one night, after receiving a devastating professional rejection, she made a different choice. Instead of cursing her circumstances, she chose different words. "God, don't let me hate that person," she prayed. Then she spent hours speaking words of love and forgiveness toward the person who had hurt her. Within 3 days, her skin condition, which had persisted for years, completely disappeared. The words of love had neutralized the words of resentment that had created the physical manifestation. Your body listens to every word you speak. When you constantly talk about being tired, your cells receive instructions to produce fatigue. When you joke about getting old, your biology responds by accelerating aging processes. But when you speak words of health, vitality, and strength, your body responds accordingly. Your cells are constantly renewing themselves based on the information you provide through your words and thoughts. The same principle applies to relationships. People who constantly complain about being lonely send out an energy that repels connection. Those who speak words of love and gratitude attract loving people into their lives. If you want to transform your relationships, stop talking about what's wrong with people and start speaking about what you appreciate. Stop complaining about being misunderstood and start expressing understanding toward others. Your words about money determine your financial experiences. Stop joking about being broke. Stop complaining about expensive prices. Stop talking about what you can't afford. Instead, speak words of abundance. Say, "Money comes to me easily and frequently." Declare, "I am a magnet for prosperity." Affirm, "The universe is constantly providing for my needs." But here's what's crucial. You must believe the words you speak, or they become empty incantations. Words spoken with doubt create more doubt. Words spoken with fear amplify fear. Before you speak, check your emotional state. Are you speaking from faith or fear? From love or resentment? From abundance or lack? If you catch yourself about to complain, pause. Ask yourself, what do I really want to create with my words? Then speak that instead. Some people resist this idea because they think it's dishonest to speak positively when they feel negatively. But you're not lying. You're choosing which part of reality to emphasize and amplify. There is always something to appreciate, even in difficult circumstances. There is always some aspect of your situation that contains seeds of improvement. Focus your words on these seeds and watch them grow into full manifestations. Starting now, become a guardian of your words. Speak only what you want to experience. Declare only what you want to multiply. Affirm only what you want to attract. Your words are the most powerful creative force you possess. Use them wisely, and they will transform your entire life. Chapter 4: The Law of Nonresistance. Picture a river encountering a massive boulder. The water doesn't rage against the stone, doesn't exhaust itself trying to move it, doesn't complain about the obstruction. It simply flows around it, and over time, gently wears the boulder away. Now picture most people encountering obstacles. They push, strain, argue, and burn themselves out trying to force their way through. They resist what is, and in that resistance, they give power to the very things they want to change. Florence Scovel Shinn discovered one of life's most paradoxical truths. What you resist persists, and what you accept transforms. This doesn't mean becoming passive or accepting abuse. It means understanding that resistance creates tension, and tension blocks the flow of good into your life. When you stop fighting against circumstances and start flowing with them, you discover solutions that were invisible during the struggle. Think about the last time you were stuck in traffic. If you spent that time frustrated, angry, and resistant, how did you feel when you finally arrived at your destination? Probably drained and irritated. But if you accepted the situation and used the time for something enjoyable, listening to music, having a meaningful conversation, or simply appreciating the moment of stillness, you arrived refreshed despite the delay. Same traffic, same delay, completely different experiences based on your level of resistance. A woman was desperately trying to save her failing marriage. She pushed, pleaded, threatened, and manipulated, trying to force her husband to change. The more she resisted his behavior, the worse it became. Finally, exhausted from the struggle, she surrendered. She stopped trying to control him and focused on her own growth and happiness. Within months, either her husband transformed in response to her peaceful energy, or she became clear about what she really needed for her well-being. Either way, her surrender opened pathways that resistance had blocked. Resistance often feels like the right response to unwanted circumstances. When someone treats you poorly, every instinct screams to fight back. When money is tight, It seems logical to worry and struggle. When health challenges arise, fighting the disease feels like the heroic choice. But resistance operates on the same frequency as the thing you're resisting. Fight poverty, and you stay engaged with lack. Battle illness, and you remain focused on sickness. Rage against injustice, and you vibrate with the very energy you want to eliminate. This is why Jesus said, "Resist not evil," not because evil should be ignored, but because resistance gives power to what you want to dissolve. Instead of resisting what you don't want, align your energy with what you do want. Instead of fighting poverty, focus on creating abundance. Instead of battling illness, concentrate on building health. Instead of arguing against injustice, work toward creating fairness. A man was involved in a complicated legal dispute that had dragged on for years. He spent enormous amounts of energy and money fighting, and the situation only grew worse. Finally, someone suggested he try non-resistance. Instead of seeing his opponents as enemies, he began blessing them. Instead of strategizing attacks, he visualized peaceful resolution. Instead of preparing for battle, he prepared for harmony. The shift was remarkable. Within weeks, settlement opportunities emerged that hadn't existed before. People who had been adversarial became cooperative. The situation resolved in a way that benefited everyone involved. This wasn't weakness. This was accessing a higher form of power. The power that flows when you stop swimming against the current and start moving with the river of life. Non-resistance doesn't mean giving up your desires. It means releasing your attachment to specific outcomes and trusting that life is working in your favor, even when appearances suggest otherwise. When you resist your current circumstances, you're literally pushing away the lessons, opportunities, and growth they contain. You're saying to the universe, "I don't trust your process." But when you accept what is while holding vision for what could be, you open yourself to miraculous transformations. A single mother was struggling to make ends meet while raising her children alone. She could have spent her energy resisting her situation, bitter about her ex-husband, angry about financial challenges, resentful about having to do everything herself. Instead, she chose acceptance. She found gratitude for her children's health, appreciation for her own strength, and trust that her situation would improve. This peaceful energy attracted opportunities that wouldn't have appeared during a state of resistance. Better job offers emerged. Helpful people entered her life. Her children thrived in response to her calm confidence. By not resisting her challenging circumstances, she created space for positive changes to unfold naturally. The practice of non-resistance begins with your internal dialogue. Notice when you're mentally arguing with reality. This shouldn't be happening. It's not fair. Why me? These thoughts are forms of resistance that block your creative power. Instead, practice phrases like, "This too shall pass." "There's a gift in this situation." "I trust the process of life." All things work together for good. When facing difficulties, ask yourself, how can I flow with this situation instead of fighting against it? What would love do here? How can I use this experience for growth and wisdom? Remember, you're not trying to eliminate all negative experiences. You're learning to navigate them without adding the extra suffering that resistance creates. Non-resistance is ultimately about trust. Trust that life is not happening to you, but for you. Trust that every experience contains seeds of wisdom. Trust that the same intelligence that orchestrates the planets and seasons is also orchestrating your journey toward your highest good. When you stop resisting the river of life and start flowing with it, you discover that the current was always carrying you toward exactly where you need to be. Chapter 5: The Law of Karma and the Law of Forgiveness. In a small town, two women lived remarkably different lives despite similar circumstances. Both had experienced betrayal and love. Both had faced financial setbacks. Both had reasons to feel bitter about the past. The first woman nursed her wounds like precious possessions. She told her story of victimization to anyone who would listen. She held on to resentment like a security blanket, believing that her anger proved her worth and justified her continued suffering. The second woman made a different choice. She felt the pain fully, then chose to release it. She forgave not because others deserved it, but because she deserved peace. She refused to let the past poison her present. Years later, the first woman was still trapped in cycles of drama and disappointment. The second had created a life filled with love, abundance, and joy. Same starting point, different understanding of spiritual law. This is the difference between those who understand karma and forgiveness and those who remain enslaved by the past. Karma isn't punishment, it's education. Every action creates a corresponding reaction, not to harm you, but to teach you about the nature of giving and receiving. What you send out must return to you, giving you the opportunity to experience the consequences of your choices. If you send out criticism, criticism returns to show you how it feels. If you send out kindness, kindness comes back to remind you of your true nature. The universe isn't keeping score to punish you. It's providing feedback to help you grow. But here's what most people miss. Karma isn't fixed. It can be transformed through forgiveness. A woman had spent years criticizing her sister's husband. She constantly pointed out his flaws, made jokes about his failures, and encouraged her sister to be dissatisfied with the marriage. Then her sister divorced, and the woman expected to feel vindicated. Instead, her own marriage began falling apart. Her husband, who had been loving and supportive, became critical and distant. She was experiencing the karma of her critical nature, not as punishment, but as education about the destructive power of judgment. She could have doubled down, becoming even more critical and bitter. Instead, she recognized the pattern. She began blessing her former brother-in-law instead of criticizing him. She spoke words of healing over her sister's relationship instead of stirring up more conflict. Miraculously, her own marriage began to heal. Her husband softened in response to her transformed energy. The karma of criticism was neutralized by the higher law of forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't about the people who hurt you. It's about freeing yourself from the energetic chains that bind you to negative experiences. When you hold resentment, you're not punishing the person who wronged you. You're imprisoning yourself in that moment of pain. Every act of unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. You carry the toxicity in your body, your emotions, and your energy field, and it affects every area of your life. Physical symptoms often manifest from unforgiving hearts. Arthritis from critical thoughts, heart problems from harbored hurt, digestive issues from swallowed anger. The body stores every unexpressed emotion and every unresolved resentment. But forgiveness is healing medicine that works instantly. When you truly forgive, you release not just emotional burdens, but often physical ailments that were connected to the resentment. A man had carried bitterness toward his father for decades. He blamed his father for his own struggles with money, relationships, and self-worth. This resentment colored every interaction and limited every opportunity. Then he learned that forgiveness wasn't about approving of his father's behavior. It was about freeing himself from the past. He began speaking words of release. I forgive my father completely. I release him and myself from the bonds of the past. I am free. The changes were immediate. Opportunities that had been blocked suddenly opened. Relationships that had been strained began healing. Money that had been scarce started flowing. By forgiving his father, he had freed his own energy to create the life he actually wanted. But what about when forgiveness feels impossible? When the hurt is so deep that releasing it seems like betraying yourself? Start with willingness. You don't have to feel forgiveness. You just have to be willing to forgive. Say, I am willing to forgive, and let that willingness do the work. Forgiveness is a process, not a moment. Some hurts require multiple acts of release. Each time the memory surfaces with pain, it's an opportunity to forgive again, going deeper into freedom each time. Remember, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or trusting the person again. It means releasing the emotional charge so that the memory no longer controls your present experience. Sometimes the hardest person to forgive is yourself. You carry guilt and shame about past mistakes, believing that self-punishment will somehow undo what happened. But self-condemnation only creates more suffering and prevents you from growing beyond your mistakes. Forgive yourself with the same compassion you would offer a dear friend. Recognize that you did the best you could with the understanding you had at the time. Use your mistakes as wisdom for better choices, not weapons for self-torture. The law of forgiveness works instantly. The moment you truly release resentment, you step into a new timeline. You're no longer bound by the karma of the past because you've chosen love over judgment, freedom over bondage, peace over conflict. Practice forgiveness daily. At the end of each day, ask yourself, who do I need to forgive today? What do I need to release? Then speak words of blessing over anyone who triggered negative emotions in you. I fully and freely forgive. I loose and let go. I radiate love and abundance. Watch how this simple practice transforms your relationships, your health, your prosperity, and your inner peace. Forgiveness isn't just spiritual advice. It's practical magic that immediately improves every area of your life. Chapter 6. Casting the Burden. A young mother sat in her car, hands gripping the steering wheel, tears streaming down her face. Her toddler was screaming in the back seat. Bills were piling up at home. Her marriage was strained, and she felt completely overwhelmed. In that moment, she felt like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. Every problem seemed to demand immediate attention. Every challenge appeared to rest entirely on her ability to solve it. Sound familiar? Most people live in this state of overwhelm, believing they must personally handle every detail of their lives. They carry worries like heavy backpacks, adding more weight with each new concern until they can barely move forward. But what if you were never meant to carry these burdens alone? Florence Scovel Shinn discovered one of the most liberating truths of spiritual law. You don't have to figure everything out. You don't have to solve every problem through sheer willpower. You have access to infinite intelligence that can orchestrate solutions far beyond your limited perspective. The practice is called casting the burden, and it's based on the biblical promise. Cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. This doesn't mean becoming passive or irresponsible. It means recognizing that there's a divine intelligence operating in your life that knows things you don't know, sees connections you can't see, and has access to resources you haven't imagined. A woman had been struggling for months to find work. She had sent out hundreds of resumes, attended countless interviews, and was growing increasingly desperate. The harder she tried, the more elusive employment became. Finally, exhausted from the struggle, she decided to cast her burden. She said, I cast this burden of finding work upon the Christ within me. Divine intelligence knows exactly the right position for me, and it manifests now with perfect timing. Then she did something that seemed counterintuitive. She stopped frantically searching and started trusting. Instead of spending all day sending resumes, she followed her intuition about how to spend her time. One afternoon, she felt drawn to visit a local coffee shop. While there, she struck up a conversation with another customer who mentioned that her company was looking for someone with exactly her skills. By the end of the week, she had a job offer that was better than anything she had pursued through her own efforts. This is how casting the burden works. You stop trying to force solutions through limited thinking and allow infinite intelligence to orchestrate circumstances in ways your human mind could never devise. But casting the burden requires genuine release. You can't say the words while still mentally carrying the worry. True surrender means letting go of your attachment to specific outcomes and trusting that what unfolds will serve your highest good. A couple was facing foreclosure on their home. They had exhausted every financial option they could think of. Instead of continuing to panic and scheme, they decided to cast this burden upon divine intelligence. They said, "We release this situation completely. If this house is meant to be ours, it will be saved. If we're meant to live somewhere else, that perfect place will appear. We trust the process completely." With this genuine surrender, their energy shifted from desperation to peace. In that state of trust, they became open to solutions they had previously overlooked. A relative offered to help. A new opportunity emerged at work. The house was saved, but more importantly, they learned to navigate challenges from a place of faith rather than fear. Casting the burden works because worry and anxiety block your ability to receive inspiration and recognize opportunities. When your mind is consumed with fear-based thoughts, you can't hear the quiet voice of wisdom that's always trying to guide you. But when you genuinely release your concerns to higher intelligence, your mind becomes quiet and receptive. In this state, insights appear, doors open, and solutions manifest that seemed impossible before. The key is specificity. Don't just say, "God, help me." Cast specific burdens. I cast my concern about my health upon divine intelligence. Perfect healing is already complete in divine mind and manifests now in my body. I cast my worry about my child's future upon infinite wisdom. The perfect path unfolds for them with grace and ease. I cast my financial anxiety upon divine abundance. All my needs are met from sources seen and unseen. After casting a burden, pay attention to your intuition. Often, the first step in the solution will come as an inner knowing, a sudden idea, or an impulse to take a particular action. A woman was worried about her elderly father's health and safety. She cast this burden, saying, "Divine intelligence is caring for my father in ways I cannot." Perfect solutions appear now. Almost immediately, she felt inspired to call a certain family friend. That friend mentioned knowing someone who provided exactly the kind of care her father needed. The solution had been available all along, but her worry had prevented her from receiving the guidance to find it. Some people resist casting their burdens because they believe it's their responsibility to worry about everything. They think worry proves they care. But worry is not love. It's fear masquerading as concern. True love trusts. True care takes appropriate action and then releases the outcome to divine order. When you cast your burdens, you're not abandoning your responsibilities. You're partnering with infinite intelligence to fulfill them more effectively. Practice this throughout your day. Every time you notice anxiety building, immediately cast that burden. I cast this concern upon the Christ within me, and I go free. Feel the weight lifting from your shoulders. Notice how solutions become visible when you're not blinded by worry. Watch how life becomes effortless when you remember you're not meant to carry the world alone. Chapter 7. Love. She had been alone for 3 years. Not by choice, but by a series of painful relationships that ended in betrayal, disappointment, and heartbreak. Friends kept telling her to put herself out there, but every attempt at dating felt forced and empty. She was trying so hard to find love that she had forgotten how to be loved. Then something shifted. Instead of desperately seeking someone to complete her, she began focusing on becoming the kind of person she wanted to attract. Instead of looking for love, she started radiating it. She smiled at strangers. She offered genuine compliments. She volunteered at a local animal shelter. She spoke kindly to herself in the mirror. Slowly, her entire energy transformed from needy and grasping to warm and magnetic. Within months, love appeared naturally, not through dating apps or forced encounters, but through a spontaneous connection with someone who was drawn to her authentic joy and self-possession. This is how love actually works. It's not something you chase or capture. It's something you become and attract. Florence Scovel Shinn understood that love is the most powerful magnetic force in the universe. But most people misunderstand love, thinking it means clinging, possessing, or sacrificing yourself for others' approval. Real love is expansion, not contraction. It's freedom, not bondage. It's giving without keeping score, not trading affection for security. When you truly love, you don't try to change people to meet your needs. You don't manipulate or control. You don't make your happiness dependent on others' choices. Instead, you radiate such genuine warmth that people naturally want to be near you. A woman came to Shinn desperate to marry a specific man she called AB. She was convinced this man was her soulmate and begged Shinn to help make it happen. But Shinn recognized this wasn't love, it was attachment. True love would want what was best for AB, even if that meant being with someone else. True love would trust that if this man was right for her, nothing could keep them apart, and if he wasn't, someone better would appear. So instead of trying to manipulate AB into love, Shinn spoke for the woman's divine right relationship, whoever that person might be. Gradually, the woman's obsession with AB began to fade. She stopped analyzing his every word and action. She stopped trying to force conversations and connections. She began focusing on her own growth and happiness. Soon after, she met another man who immediately recognized her worth and expressed all the feelings she had hoped AB would share. This new relationship flowed naturally because it was based on mutual attraction rather than desperate need. This story illustrates the law of substitution. When you release attachment to the wrong person or situation, the right one can appear. But you must genuinely let go, not just pretend to release while secretly hoping to manipulate the outcome. Many people stay stuck in unfulfilling relationships because they fear being alone. They settle for crumbs of affection rather than waiting for the feast of genuine love. But this fear-based choice blocks the very thing they desire. When you cling to someone who doesn't appreciate you, you're telling the universe that you don't believe you deserve better. You're programming your subconscious with messages of unworthiness that attract more unworthy treatment. The paradox of love is that you must be willing to be alone to attract the right partnership. You must value yourself enough to walk away from situations that diminish you. Only then do you emit the energy that draws truly loving people into your life. A man had been married for 20 years to someone who constantly criticized and belittled him. He stayed because he feared starting over, worried he would never find love again. But his acceptance of poor treatment had trained his wife to disrespect him. His energy of resignation attracted more of what he didn't want. Finally, he realized that staying in a loveless marriage wasn't protecting love, it was preventing it. When he found the courage to require better treatment or consider leaving, everything changed. His wife, sensing his newfound self-respect, began treating him with more appreciation. And if she hadn't changed, he would have been free to find someone who valued him properly. Love begins with your relationship with yourself. If you constantly criticize yourself, you'll attract critical partners. If you neglect your own needs, you'll draw people who take you for granted. If you don't believe you deserve happiness, you'll settle for relationships that confirm that belief. But when you treat yourself with genuine love, speaking kindly to yourself, honoring your needs, celebrating your unique qualities, you become magnetic to people who will treat you the same way. Practice loving yourself first. Notice your internal dialogue. Would you speak to a dear friend the way you speak to yourself? If not, change the conversation. Celebrate your accomplishments, even small ones. Forgive your mistakes quickly and completely. Make time for activities that bring you joy. Surround yourself with beauty. Take care of your physical health as an act of self-love. As you become more loving toward yourself, you'll naturally become more loving toward others. You'll stop trying to get love and start giving it freely. This shift in energy transforms every relationship in your life. Love is not a limited resource. The more you give, the more you have. When you love without expectation, love flows back to you from unexpected sources. Start practicing radical love today. Send anonymous gifts. Offer genuine compliments to strangers. Forgive people who don't even know they've hurt you. Express appreciation to those who serve you. Love dissolves problems that cannot be solved through conflict. Love opens hearts that remain closed to arguments. Love attracts miracles that logic cannot create. But remember, love is not enabling bad behavior or accepting abuse. Real love sometimes says no. True love protects itself from harm. Authentic love requires healthy boundaries. The goal is not to become a doormat, but to become a beacon. Not to sacrifice yourself for others' happiness, but to radiate such genuine joy that happiness multiplies wherever you go. When you master the art of loving yourself and others without condition, without expectation, without manipulation, you become irresistible to all good things. Love attracts love, and love attracts everything else worth having. Chapter 8. Intuition or Guidance. The businessman stared at the contract on his desk. Every logical consideration said to sign it. The numbers made sense. His advisors recommended it. His rational mind saw no problems. But something in his gut whispered, "Wait." He ignored that quiet voice and signed the deal. 6 months later, hidden problems emerged that cost him everything. The intuition he had dismissed would have saved him from disaster. Meanwhile, across town, a woman was facing a difficult decision about her career. Logic said to stay in her secure job. Friends advised against taking risks. Her mind created elaborate lists of reasons to maintain the status quo. But her intuition kept nudging her toward a completely different path. Despite having no logical reason to trust this inner knowing, she followed the guidance. That decision led to opportunities beyond anything she could have planned. The intuitive choice opened doors that logical thinking never would have revealed. 2 people, 2 decisions. One listened to logic and suffered. The other trusted intuition and thrived. Your intuition is the voice of infinite intelligence speaking directly to you. It knows things your conscious mind cannot access. It sees connections your rational thinking cannot perceive. It understands timing in ways that analysis cannot comprehend. But most people have been trained to dismiss this inner wisdom. They've been taught that only logic is trustworthy, that feelings are unreliable, that inner knowing is just wishful thinking. This is one of the most costly mistakes you can make. Florence Scovel Shinn discovered that intuition is your direct line to divine guidance. It's how infinite intelligence communicates personalized direction for your unique path. A woman came to Shinn in desperate financial straits, possessing only $8. When asked what her intuition suggested, she felt drawn to return home to a distant city where she had no prospects. Logic would have said to stay and look for work. Friends would have called her crazy for spending her last money on transportation to a place that offered no obvious opportunities. But Shinn understood something most people miss. Never violate a hunch. The woman followed her intuitive guidance and went home. Through a series of coincidental encounters, she connected with people who led to financial abundance beyond anything she could have planned from her previous location. The $8 and a hunch became thousands of dollars and a new life. But only because she trusted the illogical wisdom of her inner knowing. Your intuition speaks in different ways. Sometimes it's a sudden knowing about what to do. Sometimes it's a feeling in your body that says yes or no. Sometimes it's a sense of being drawn toward or away from certain people or situations. Often, intuitive guidance seems to make no logical sense. It might tell you to take a different route home, call someone you haven't spoken to in years, or pursue an opportunity that seems impractical. The key is learning to recognize your intuitive voice and distinguish it from fear-based thoughts or wishful thinking. Intuitive guidance usually feels calm and clear, even when it suggests doing something challenging. Fear-based thoughts feel frantic and urgent. Wishful thinking feels emotional and attached to specific outcomes. True intuition often points you toward growth and expansion, even when that means stepping outside your comfort zone. It rarely tells you to do things that harm yourself or others. A mother felt a strong urge to pick up her children early from school one day, despite having no logical reason to do so. She almost dismissed the feeling, but something inside insisted. When she arrived at the school, she discovered there had been an emergency that required parents to collect their children immediately. Her intuition had warned her before the situation became publicly known. This kind of protective guidance happens regularly when you learn to listen to and trust your inner knowing. But intuition also provides creative and strategic guidance that can transform your life in positive ways. An artist had been struggling to get gallery representation for years. Following traditional advice, she sent portfolios to established galleries and waited for responses that rarely came. Then her intuition suggested a different approach. She felt drawn to create art in public spaces, even though this seemed counterproductive to her gallery goals. Following this guidance, she began painting murals in her community. People noticed her work. Local media covered her projects. Eventually, gallery owners who had ignored her traditional submissions sought her out because of the buzz she had created through following her intuitive approach. Developing your intuitive abilities requires daily practice. Set aside time each day to sit quietly and ask your inner wisdom for guidance about any situation you're facing. Don't expect dramatic revelations at first. Intuition often begins with subtle nudges, gentle preferences, or quiet knowings. The more you acknowledge and act on these subtle communications, the stronger and clearer they become. Start with low-stakes decisions. Ask your intuition which route to take to work, what to eat for lunch, or whom to call today. Notice the outcomes when you follow these impulses versus when you ignore them. Keep a journal of your intuitive hits and misses. Over time, you'll begin to recognize the specific ways your inner guidance communicates with you. Learn to ask better questions. Instead of asking, "What should I do?" try asking, "What would love do here?" Or "What serves my highest good?" Or "What direction leads to my greatest growth and contribution?" Pay attention to your body's responses. Your physical form often receives intuitive information before your mind does. Notice which choices make you feel expanded and energized versus contracted and drained. Remember that intuitive guidance often comes in steps, not complete roadmaps. You might receive clear direction for the next action to take, but not see the entire journey ahead. Trust the process and take one guided step at a time. Some people worry that following intuition means abandoning rational thinking. But the highest wisdom comes from combining intuitive guidance with practical intelligence. Let intuition point the direction, then use your mind to determine how to move in that direction wisely. Your intuition is always available, always accurate, and always has your best interests at heart. The more you trust it, the more magical your life becomes. When you follow intuitive guidance, you align with the flow of life itself. Opportunities appear at perfect timing. The right people show up exactly when needed. Solutions emerge for problems you couldn't solve through thinking alone. This is not luck or coincidence. This is what happens when you remember that you have direct access to infinite intelligence that knows exactly what you need and when you need it. Trust the voice within. It's wiser than any external advisor and more reliable than any logical analysis. Your intuition is your direct connection to the divine intelligence that orchestrates all of life. Chapter 9: perfect self-expression or the divine design? At 35, she felt completely lost. The career that had looked perfect on paper left her feeling empty. The life she had built according to everyone else's expectations felt like a beautifully decorated prison. She had followed all the rules, checked all the boxes, and achieved everything she was supposed to want. Yet every morning, she woke with a sense of profound dissatisfaction that no amount of success could cure. Then one day, she remembered something she had loved as a child but dismissed as impractical: storytelling. The memory came with such intensity and longing that it stopped her in her tracks. For the first time in years, something felt alive inside her. Meanwhile, her college roommate had spent those same years pursuing her childhood passion for working with animals. Friends had warned her about the financial challenges, the limited opportunities, the impracticality of following such dreams. But she had never felt she was working. Every challenge felt meaningful. Every day brought energy and purpose. What others saw as career limitations, she experienced as a perfect expression of her authentic self. Two paths. One led to external success and internal emptiness. The other led to meaningful work and deep fulfillment. This is the difference between living according to others' expectations and discovering your divine design. Everyone has a unique purpose, a specific way they're meant to contribute to the world. Florence Scovel Shinn called this your divine design, the perfect expression of who you really are. This design isn't something you create through willpower or achieve through effort. It's something you discover by paying attention to what naturally flows through you, what energizes you, what feels like play rather than work. Your divine design often appears as something that seems too good to be true. That's exactly how you know it's authentic. The thing that would make you jump out of bed with excitement, that would make you forget to watch the clock, that feels almost too wonderful to hope for. That's probably pointing toward your true calling. But most people dismiss these natural inclinations as unrealistic fantasies. They've been taught to separate passion from practicality, to view their deepest desires with suspicion. A man had always been drawn to music, but became an accountant because it seemed more secure. He spent 20 years feeling increasingly lifeless, watching younger musicians pursue the path he had abandoned. Finally, at 45, he began incorporating music back into his life, not as a complete career change initially, but as a way to honor the part of himself he had buried. He started playing at local venues on weekends. He offered music lessons from his home. He began composing again. As he honored this authentic part of himself, everything else in his life improved. His accounting work became more successful because he was no longer depleted by ignoring his true nature. His relationships deepened because he was finally being authentic. His health improved because he was no longer fighting against his own soul. Eventually, the music became profitable enough to become his primary focus. But the real success was remembering who he truly was. Your divine design isn't necessarily about changing careers, though it might be. It's about expressing your authentic self more fully in whatever you're currently doing. A teacher discovered that her divine design wasn't just about imparting information. It was about inspiring confidence in young people who doubted themselves. This realization transformed how she approached her existing job, making it deeply meaningful instead of just functionally adequate. A salesperson realized his gift wasn't just convincing people to buy things. It was helping them discover solutions to problems they didn't know they had. This shift in perspective turned routine work into a mission of service. The key is recognizing that your divine design always involves serving others in some way. It's not just about your personal fulfillment, but about the unique contribution only you can make. Often, your divine design emerges from your struggles and challenges. The difficulties you've overcome become the wisdom you're meant to share. The problems you've solved become the services you're meant to offer. A woman who had struggled with anxiety for years eventually learned to manage it so well that friends began asking for her guidance. She realized that her painful journey had equipped her with insights that could help others find peace. She began sharing her story and strategies, first informally, then through writing and speaking. Her greatest challenge became her greatest gift to the world. Sometimes your divine design requires you to trust timing that doesn't make logical sense. You might need to develop skills for years before understanding how they fit together. You might feel drawn to experiences that seem unrelated to your ultimate purpose. Trust the process. Every experience is preparing you for your unique contribution. Even apparent detours are usually gathering the wisdom and skills you'll need later. A man spent 10 years in corporate finance, always feeling like he was in the wrong place. Then he felt called to start a nonprofit organization. Suddenly, all those financial skills became invaluable for creating sustainable impact in a way that pure idealism couldn't have achieved. Your divine design often requires courage to disappoint others' expectations. Family members might not understand. Friends might question your choices. Society might not immediately value your contribution. But you cannot live someone else's life successfully. You cannot fulfill someone else's purpose with satisfaction. You can only find true success by becoming who you actually are, not who others think you should be. The divine design feels risky to the ego, but safe to the soul. It might not offer traditional security, but it provides something more valuable: the deep satisfaction of authentic expression. Remember that you cannot miss what is truly yours. If something is part of your divine design, all the forces of the universe will conspire to help you achieve it. Doors will open, resources will appear, the right people will show up at the perfect time. But you must take the first steps in faith, even when you can't see the entire staircase. Start by paying attention to what naturally flows through you. What do people consistently compliment you on? What problems do you naturally solve for others? What activities make you lose track of time? Ask yourself, if money were not a consideration, what would I love to spend my time doing? If I knew I could not fail, what would I attempt? What would I do if I weren't trying to impress anyone? Begin incorporating more of these authentic expressions into your current life. You don't have to quit everything and start over. You can begin living your divine design incrementally, allowing it to grow naturally as you honor it consistently. Your divine design is not a luxury or a fantasy. It's your responsibility to the world. The unique gifts you carry are needed. The specific problems you're meant to solve are waiting for your attention. The world needs what you have to offer, but only you can choose to offer it. Chapter 10: Denials and Affirmations. She stood in front of the mirror, preparing for another day at a job she hated, in a relationship that drained her, in a life that felt like someone else's mistake. But this morning, something was different. Instead of the usual litany of complaints and criticisms, she decided to try something her grandmother had mentioned years ago. "Every false belief is erased from my mind," she said aloud, feeling awkward but determined. "I now demonstrate health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression." The words felt strange in her mouth, but something stirred inside her, a tiny spark of possibility she hadn't felt in years. She continued this practice daily, despite feeling foolish and doubting it would work. Denial: fear has no power over me. Affirmation: I am divinely protected and guided. Denial: lack is not my reality. Affirmation: infinite abundance flows to me now. Within weeks, changes began appearing in her life. Small at first, a compliment from a stranger, an unexpected refund, a moment of genuine laughter. But gradually, larger shifts occurred. New opportunities emerged. Difficult people became less problematic. Her entire energy shifted from victim to victor. She had discovered the power of mental house cleaning. Most people spend their entire lives unconsciously programming their subconscious minds with limited, fearful, negative beliefs. They replay old hurts, rehearse future disasters, and affirm their limitations thousands of times per day. I can't afford that. I'm so unlucky. Nothing ever works out for me. I'm too old. I'm not smart enough. Good things don't happen to people like me. Each repetition of these thoughts strengthens neural pathways that make these limitations feel increasingly real and fixed. But Florence Scovel Shinn discovered that you can consciously reprogram your subconscious mind through the systematic practice of denials and affirmations. Denials erase false beliefs. Affirmations install true ones. Think of your subconscious mind as a recording device that has been playing the same limited songs for years. Denials stop the old recordings. Affirmations create new ones. But this isn't just positive thinking or wishful hoping. This is precise work with the creative power of consciousness itself. A woman had lived in poverty for years, despite working multiple jobs and trying every practical strategy for improving her finances. She had unconsciously programmed herself with beliefs inherited from her family. Money is the root of all evil. Rich people are greedy. There's never enough to go around. These beliefs created a subconscious resistance to wealth that sabotaged every financial opportunity. She began daily practice. I deny that lack has any power over me. I now erase every belief in limitation and insufficiency. Money is spiritual substance that flows to me freely and abundantly. At first, these words felt like lies. Her bank account remained empty. Her circumstances appeared unchanged. But she persisted, knowing that subconscious reprogramming takes consistent repetition. Gradually, her relationship with money shifted. She stopped feeling guilty about wanting financial security. She began noticing opportunities she had previously overlooked. She attracted helpful people and beneficial circumstances. Within a year, her income had tripled through a combination of promotion, side projects, and unexpected windfalls. The affirmations hadn't magically created money. They had removed the internal barriers that were blocking its natural flow. The key to effective affirmations is emotional conviction. Words spoken without feeling are just noise. But words charged with genuine belief become creative forces that reshape reality. If affirmations feel false at first, start with denials. Clear away the weeds before planting new seeds. I deny that this condition is permanent. I erase every belief in my inability to change. I refuse to accept limitation as my reality. These statements help loosen the grip of old programming, making space for new possibilities. Then follow with affirmations that feel at least slightly believable. I am open to positive change. Good things are possible for me. I am worthy of improvement in every area of my life. Gradually increase the power of your affirmations as your belief in them grows. Perfect health is my natural state. Abundance flows to me from expected and unexpected sources. I attract loving, supportive relationships. A man had struggled with health issues for years, accepting doctors' pronouncements that his condition was chronic and incurable. His daily self-talk reinforced this limitation. I'm sick. My body is weak. I'll never be healthy. He began systematically denying these beliefs. I refuse to accept sickness as permanent. Every cell in my body is perfectly designed for health and vitality. Then he affirmed new realities. Divine life flows through every cell of my being. My body knows how to heal itself perfectly. I am radiantly healthy and strong. As his internal dialogue changed, his external experience began shifting. He found new treatments that helped. His energy improved. Symptoms that had persisted for years began disappearing. The affirmations hadn't performed magic. They had aligned his consciousness with the body's natural healing intelligence. removing the mental obstacles that were interfering with recovery. For affirmations to work effectively, they must be specific. Instead of "things will get better," say, "I now experience perfect health, abundant prosperity, and loving relationships." Present tense. Don't say, "I will be successful." Say, "I am successful now." Positive. Focus on what you want, not what you don't want. Instead of "I am not sick," say, "I am perfectly healthy." Emotionally charged. Feel the truth of your words as you speak them. Engage your entire being in the affirmation. Create a daily practice of mental house cleaning. Each morning, deny the false beliefs that have been limiting you. Each evening, affirm the truths you want to experience. I now smash and demolish every untrue record in my subconscious mind. They return to the dust heap of their native nothingness, for they came from my own vain imaginings. I now make perfect records through the divine intelligence within me, records of health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression. Remember, you are constantly affirming something through your thoughts, words, and expectations. The question is whether you're affirming limitations or possibilities, problems or solutions, fear or faith. Choose your mental diet as carefully as you choose your physical food. Feed your mind only thoughts that nourish your highest potential. Your subconscious mind is listening to every word, storing every thought, and working constantly to make your mental patterns manifest as life experiences. What are you programming? What are you affirming? What reality are you creating through the content of your consciousness? From this moment forward, become conscious of your mental input. Deny every limitation. Affirm every possibility. Watch your world transform in response to your transformed thinking. Conclusion. You now hold the keys to a game most people never realize they're playing. For 1925, when Florence Scovel Shinn first shared these principles, they seemed revolutionary. Today, quantum physics and consciousness research validate what she intuitively understood. Your thoughts, words, and emotions literally shape your reality. But knowing the rules isn't enough. You must play the game. Think back to where we started. That feeling of watching others effortlessly attract what you struggle to achieve. Now you understand the difference. They weren't luckier, more talented, or more deserving. They had simply learned to work with spiritual laws instead of against them. The game of life is not about competing with others. It's about aligning with the infinite intelligence that operates through you. It's about remembering that you are not separate from the source of all good. You are its perfect expression. When you give, you receive. When you speak with faith, you create with power. When you forgive, you free yourself. When you stop resisting, you start flowing. When you cast your burdens, you find peace. When you radiate love, you attract everything beautiful. When you trust your intuition, you align with divine guidance. When you express authentically, you fulfill your purpose. When you affirm truth and deny limitation, you reprogram your entire experience. These aren't religious concepts or mystical theories. They are practical principles that work regardless of your background, beliefs, or circumstances. But they require one thing most people are unwilling to give: consistent practice. You can't read these ideas once and expect transformation. You can't apply them occasionally and create lasting change. The game of life rewards those who make these principles a way of being, not just a temporary technique. Every morning when you wake up, you choose which game to play. Will you battle against life, or will you flow with it? Will you speak limitation, or will you declare possibility? Will you carry your burdens alone, or will you cast them upon infinite intelligence? Will you resist what is, or will you trust the process? Will you withhold love until others prove worthy, or will you radiate it freely? Will you ignore your inner guidance, or will you follow it courageously? Will you hide your authentic gifts, or will you express them boldly? Will you affirm your limitations, Or will you claim your divine heritage? The choice is always yours. And with each choice, you either move closer to mastery or further from it. The woman who stood in front of her mirror that first morning, feeling lost and defeated, made a choice to try something different. The businessman who ignored his intuition learned to trust it after paying the price for dismissing it. The mother who felt overwhelmed discovered she could cast her burdens on infinite intelligence. Each of them reached a moment when they decided to stop playing the game of struggle and start playing the game of alignment. Your moment is now. You have everything you need to transform your life completely. You have access to infinite intelligence, unlimited supply, and boundless love. You have the power to speak your world into existence, to attract everything that belongs to you by divine right, to fulfill the unique purpose only you can serve. But you must choose to use these gifts. You must decide to play by spiritual rules instead of material appearances. You must commit to practicing these principles even when, especially when, circumstances suggest they're not working. The game of life is not a one-time event. It's a daily choice, moment by moment, to align with love instead of fear, abundance instead of lack, faith instead of doubt. Some days will feel effortless. Others will challenge every spiritual principle you've learned. Both are part of the game. Both are opportunities to deepen your mastery. Remember, you are not a victim of circumstances. You are the conscious creator of your experience. Every thought you think, every word you speak, every emotion you feel is shaping the reality you will soon inhabit. Choose consciously, speak powerfully, love freely, trust completely. The game of life is not about winning or losing. It's about remembering who you really are and expressing that truth more fully each day. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. You are connected to infinite intelligence. You are worthy of every good thing. You have a unique contribution that only you can make. This is not belief or hope. This is your spiritual heritage and your eternal truth. Now go play the game with joy, with wisdom, and with absolute victory. The universe is conspiring in your favor. Every force of good is working on your behalf. All that belongs to you by divine right is flowing toward you now. Receive it, claim it, become it. Your magnificent life is waiting.